Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. We're going to be looking at another arpeggio and melody video for May. If you want to check out the rest of the series, you can check out the playlist links down below, as well as previous series as well, so you can check them out after the video. Let's jump in. I've already got the notes copied, so the pattern that we're going to be using for this body of the sound, and you can see here, this is what we're going to be working with. Now, if we just make these back into 16th notes, you can see the gap here is 3 16ths, then 2, then 2, then 1, 1, and 1. And that's the pattern we're working with today. So we're sort of a standard rhythm, so on the beats, then we turn it into an 8th dotted for those three, and then we turn it into 8th straight at the end with the 1 gaps between. So that gives us our pattern for today. And then I've extended those notes. They're not 8th note long, they're not 16th, they're somewhere in between like this. Because there's a little bit of release on the sound, so I want these notes to sort of stop before the next notes hit to minimize overlap. And before we start copying, we're just going to shove that up to C. We're working in G major today, and anything that is not in green on screen today is part of the scale assistance, so it tells you that note is not in the scale. And that's going to give us this. And we're going to copy that across. I'm going to make 8 bars of this, and that is our pattern. So we're going to start with the bass changes. And I'm just going to move them to where they're going to first, and then we can discuss this. So we've got a G, a D, an E, and a C. And the chord structure would sound like this. A very familiar pattern, especially in pop music, but in this particular way, we're using 8 bars. So we've got 2 bars of the bass, so it moves a lot slower and it just gives us a little bit more dynamic with that chord structure. It doesn't sound as cheesy. So with that, we have, let's put it with our pads. So you can see there's the chords. We're just using 2 notes for this chord structure. So it's a little bit boring just having that repeating. So we're just going to change up the notes. And in this second portion here, before the next note change, we're going to drop these down 1 chord like this. So we're keeping the same separation of 1 note in the scale. So that's not in the scale, just that one. So we're missing a note in and adding a note. So we're getting our standard triad. And we're going to drop this down, but we're going to leave that there. So it just gives us a nice little round. Just moves it round without that chord changing. It just maintains that same stance. And then for this one, we're actually going to drop the entire bar. So not just part of it, and we're going to drop this down to E. So we've got an E chord, and then we're going to drop, I think, this up to, sorry, the F sharp there. That's correct. And then we're going to do the same thing as we did over here. We're just going to have the C in the top note like that. And that just helps it cycle back round. So it's in its entirety with this counter melody. Works really well. And that is a very simple sort of thing that happens along at the bottom. It's supported by all the other elements, but that gives you the pace of that. Just keep it nice and simple so that the counter melodies can flourish in and around it in a very progressive way. Now we can focus on the counter melody. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to replay this in. Let's put the metronome on, and I'm going to play this in for you now. Just to show you how simple this is, and I'm not really a keyboard player. And we've already made a mess there. Let's just start that again. Prove my point. So one little mistake in there, but hey ho. But that is what we're looking at. So let's just quantize that. That's pretty locked in, that's not too bad. The velocity values are all over the place. But let's just start by looking at the first quarter of this, the first half, should we say, which is this bit. So what I'm doing here is if we overlap this melody here, you can see the sort of darker green areas are the chords that we've just created. You can see that I am just meandering through these chords. I'm not really deviating from those chords, if you can see. So we're starting on the third of that chord, and then we're going to the second, back to the third, second, first, and you can see then we just dip below and then we come back up, but you can see that's also following where the chords dip down as well. So we're actually mimicking what's happening there, but with a different pattern. And that is like the true nature of inspiration. When you are creating something, it just comes to you naturally because you're already hearing what's happening. And as long as you're familiar with the scale, you can sort of play something in. So you can see that really, to the point, follows everything. Apart from this B, it just falls out of line here with all of this. But that just gives a little bit of nuance in there and sounds quite nice. And then if we move over to the second portion, let's get this in here. Now you can see it deviates away, but what we're doing is we're starting on a different note at the beginning. So you can see I start on B, but I start on C here with this section. Still mimicking it. A little mistake there. Now if we just took this, let's just take this whole section that's above here and transpose it down one octave, so keeping everything in the same position. You can see it deviates away just at this section here, but then it starts following the pattern yet again. I'm just replacing the same notation but one octave up. So these are really just the connecting notes for that section. So if we put that back up, you can see it's just following the same pattern and it's nearly identical in every way. So like that's the third bar. So if I move that over to the third bar, you can see it's almost the same. It's following the same pattern and the same sort of notation. It's just slightly elevated to give you that uplifting feel. So again, let's take a look at this in its entirety. I'm just going to delete this copy because it's identical to this one, but this one's got nice solid values because we don't need any velocity changes. We can see here that I've left in my original note lengths to give it that edge. So we're not utilizing the same notes. You can see some are 1/8 long, some are less than an 1/8 long, some are close to a 1/16 long. And that just gives it a nice natural humanized feel, especially with this preset. This one has a lot of, if we just look here, you can see this here is the release time, this note length. So I'm increasing the release time. So we've got halfway. So that is roughly sort of here on the release. So there's enough there to overlap each note, and that can cause issues if you don't think about what you're doing with it. And obviously, with that being quite a quick release still, these notation parts have time to shift around. Just gives it a more human feel. So there we are. That is the 2 sections for this video. This project is available over at My Loops as part of a bonus section with the pack. So you get this project if you're a Cubase user, or audio stems and MIDI stems for you that use different DAWs. So thank you very much for watching. I've thoroughly enjoyed making this video and this track. It's been a pleasure to work with My Loops again. And I thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Take care.